But before we jump into all of that, Ethan, at 5:30, we got a news drop. Shams Charania has announced that next Tuesday, star point guard De'Aaron Fox will be getting season-ending surgery. And that essentially brings in the tank, Ethan. What is your thoughts on the news that dropped this afternoon, and also what we saw from De'Aaron in his time on the floor?
Yeah, well, last time we talked about the pros and cons, right? If he well, should he shut it down, and what is the advantages of continuing to play? And I think the only negative here is that he won't get time that we could have seen as beneficial as far as like building chemistry with the guys. But at the same time, Jude, this will be from what I understand, a very easy procedure for him.
Mm-hmm.
He will be healthier as soon as the off season starts and able to do his off season regimen as he usually would. Gets that out of the way. We don't have to worry about it affecting off season in any way at all. And it just makes sense because now we can officially tank and try and get as high a draft pick as we possibly can in the lottery to help us win. Because with or without him, G, we've seen it over the last few games. Like we're
Yeah.
basically what we were last year with him, which is nothing special. So let's just let him have the surgery. Let the other guys get some reps. Maybe we'll see some Blake Wesley with Stephon Castle, Malachi Branham, things like that, and ultimately lose some games.
Yeah. It's just such a dichotomy, dude. Not only just the Wemby news with how that happened, after the All-Star break, which was essentially right after the trade deadline. So we had this whole big hype where we even made the video and we're like, "Hey, we're pushing for the playoffs now."
Right.
Wemby out for the season. Then it's like, okay, well that completely, changes things. But
Yeah.
since we technically weren't out of the play-in yet, it was like, maybe let's see what we can do because De'Aaron is here. And then, like you said, over the past couple weeks, we've kind of realized that, unfortunately, fortunately, in a sense, Victor Wembanyama has a giant impact on
Yeah.
this team. And that's not to take away from what De'Aaron Fox has done. He had a near 30-point triple-double last night. I know there's been some other rough games. We've talked about that. If you guys want to get our thoughts on that, you can check out some of our previous episodes. But again, what were your kind of thoughts just overall from what you saw from him this season? I know obviously the context,
Hmm.
is kind of key. But what are some of the things that maybe next season you would like to see, some more of? And then maybe what are some things that you saw flashes of that you'd like to see continue?
Yeah, I thought the fit next to Victor was obviously, very seamless. Those two in the pick and roll works incredibly well. In the open court, he's one of the best point guards I've ever seen as far as pace of play, pushing the tempo. Very unselfish player. Like we all know he can score, he can go off for crazy numbers. But as far as getting other guys involved, I thought that was fantastic. The only thing and it's not even his fault, but the only thing I would look toward next season is um, getting him a better backcourt partner because Chris Paul and him next to each other kind of leaves a lot to be desired. The spacing's a little off at times. And obviously Chris Paul is best when he has the ball in his hands as well. So that kind of mitigates any, some of the benefit of having De'Aaron Fox out there at the same time. So if we're to improve the rotation, I think any negatives that we saw from De'Aaron will be fixed as well as his hand, right? Like we don't exactly know how much of a factor that has been as far as shooting the ball, but we do know that his shooting numbers have been down since getting to San Antonio. But I'm willing to write that off as uh, a, um, a rotational like problem as well as
Yeah.
his hand.
Yeah, I think when you mention the rotations as well as the fingers, those are key points. We do want to mention, not to beat a dead horse here, he did score 60 points this season. He did score 32
Yep.
points last night. So it's not like it was a major impact, but even I've mentioned in other episodes, it still does have some sort of impact. So I'm interested to see what that looks like next season. I think the points you made on the rotations is super big because who
Hmm.
knows if Chris Paul's even here next season.
Right.
Will he be starting next to Stephon Castle? We'll just have to see how the offseason plays out. And there's a lot of different things that could happen through the draft, free agency, or a potential trade that could affect that. But to hit on the things that you mentioned, the speed that we saw from him this season, as well as the glimpses that we did see in the pick and roll with him and Victor in the two-man game, I'm really excited to see that next season. But again, the thing that we've kind of been harping on, Ethan, that we kind of talked about with him kind of throughout this stretch, as much as, like we said, some of it is kind of him just, feeling out the guys, figuring them out and getting more comfortable with them with reps. I also think that next season, the intensity meter for De'Aaron when it comes to just trying to win games, and like the nonchalantness, I guess you could say, that you maybe saw at times, through the stretch post Wemby with him this season,
Mhm.
I think that's going to be turned up a notch and won't be. You just won't be seeing that as much. So that's going to be, a different evaluation. And I know I've said that in other episodes, but still, I think that's a key when we talk about De'Aaron and looking forward.
For sure.